Hey there, this is Kyle Geenen. I'm your local West Michigan real estate agent, and we are here on the West Michigan Minute Podcast. It's not a minute long, but it is a podcast, and we're going to talk about all things West Michigan. And today, I'm joined by Travis Williams, who's the CEO of the ODC Network, a good friend of mine, somebody that I've known for a while now, and excited to have you here with us today, Travis. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I think a lot of our guests here may know you, but some people probably wouldn't as well. So if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and the ODC Network, maybe a little history.
Yeah. So again, Travis Williams, I've been at the ODC Network running the Outdoor Discovery Center and all the network of different businesses that we have under our nonprofit umbrella. I've been there for 24 years now. So I started in the year 2000, but I'm a Hope College graduate, brought me here to the Holland community and met my wife at Hope, and we've lived around here ever since. So we're kind of lifers here, I think, from here on out here in West Michigan, and we're just excited to be able to be in this community and all the great things that are going on. And that's also been a blessing for me to be able to work at the ODC Network and run the Outdoor Discovery Center.
For sure. I didn't realize you and your wife met at Hope College.
Yeah. So we both are biology majors, so we met in classes at Hope, yes.
Where did you live before?
So I'm originally from Hastings,
Okay.
and I played football at Hope College, so that's kind of what drugged me over this way. And Hope has a really good biology program, so that was the other hanging thing. But football, if I'm being honest, was what started me over this way. And so, but yeah, once you get into this community and you live here, you realize this is a great place to be.
It is a fantastic place to live.
Yeah.
Which is also, I think, why the ODC Network has really taken off as well, too. You obviously have done a great job of leadership, but our community's been a great space.
Yeah, I always say to people, like, if you're going to run a nonprofit, there is no better community to run a nonprofit in than the general West Michigan community, because it's just the generosity of people and the willingness to invest in things that create a better life for folks is like first on people's lists. And it's pretty unusual operating in this environment. And you've got to work hard and still build relationships and everything to be successful. But man, I don't know if you could do the work that we do anywhere else as successfully as we can here. So.
I would have to agree with that. Give us a little backstory, if you don't mind, on Outdoor Discovery Center 24 years ago. There's a little history there, I think, right? Like how this all started,
Yeah.
And the backstory on that.
So interesting. There's a group called Wildlife Unlimited of Ottawa and Allegan counties that used to operate here, and formerly before that it was a Ducks Unlimited chapter. And they really wanted to do local kind of nature conservation related things in the community. So they formed this nonprofit, Wildlife Unlimited, and often were running, that was about 1983. In about 1996, 97, they decided they wanted to create a place where the community could come and engage in the outdoors. And so after a bunch of fumbling around a bit, they ended up partnering with the Ottawa Area Intermediate School District. And the two entities then, through a really cool collaboration, decided on kind of buying this piece of property and then developing it into this what is now the Outdoor Discovery Center. And I was hired in the year 2000 to run that. Was a young person, a couple of years out of college, and I still don't know today why they hired me, but they did and gave me the chance. And it's been quite a journey and quite frankly a dream job for me to be in this organization and part of a group that's very entrepreneurial, very grassroots, with the goal of like getting people connected to the outdoors. And again, you're in West Michigan. That's like one of the greatest things about West Michigan. And then we've been able to be a part of like helping this community become more of an outdoor destination for people and ingraining the outdoor kind of way of life into school and just parks and green spaces. And it's just been a fantastic ride to be a part of an organization that really wanted to improve a community in such a way and leave such a great impact on so many lives. And we've been able to do that. And I've been at the kind of the middle of that for a long time with a great group of people. So
I think what is also so unique is that you guys are doing all these things and you're growing and you're building the plane as you're flying it in a lot of ways, because like you're constantly adding new things, it seems like, to your organization.
Yeah, I think,
right?
Yeah, it is. And, it's starting out as this grassroots thing. One of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life is to get people to actually pay attention, right? Because like you're a new nonprofit in a community with a lot of other nonprofits going on. And like, how do you get people to want to invest? How do you get people to trust and believe in what you're doing? And you have to start doing things to get people to really engage.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took a long time. But as we went through that journey of kind of getting ourselves going in the community, one of the things that was just very evident to me is that if we were going to be long-term successful, we had to create business lines or business divisions within our nonprofit that could generate revenue and could support the overall organization and the overall mission. And so we've done that in a variety of different ways that have resulted in us growing so that we have numerous what we call business lines, but we have multiple nature-based preschools. We have nature-based consulting group that works with schools. We have an ecotourism business. We have 2 nature centers, a greenway projects. We have a watershed project we run, and we have a conservation services team that does habitat development. So we have all these things that we do now. But the diversification of ODC is what's allowed us, I think, to be successful. And it's allowed us to kind of get a mass around us that has got quite a following now that has let the organization really grow into the successful entity that it is today.
What I think a lot of people may not realize is you call it the ODC Network because you have, if I remember, there's like a chart where it shows like 10 different logos, right?
Yeah.
All these different organizations that are under your umbrella. I think the one that's most well known is probably the preschools that you operate.
Sure.
Tell a little bit about the preschools, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so that was something that when I started working at ODC, it was always on my mind. There's the first nature-based preschool really in the country is kind of given credit to be at Kalamazoo Nature Center just south of here, 50 minutes away. And I had friends that worked there, and I knew what they had done, and they'd built this wonderful thing there, and it was like, we should be doing that here. Like, why don't we do that? And that's where the idea kind of was born from. It's like any good idea, it's usually stolen from somebody else who had a good idea. And we leaned in. We weren't the first to ever do this, but what we did do that was different than probably any other place is that we've really invested into creating a network of preschools, nature-based, that focuses on getting kids connected to the outdoors. There's all sorts of research that is been done over the last couple decades around why kids need to be connected with the outdoors, why kids need nature, how it helps grow the brain better. We have such an influence today from technology and wanting people to be on screens, wanting kids to be on screens. We use them to babysit our children too often. Mm-hmm. We've all fallen into the trap of doing that. But our program is built around the idea that kids need to be engaged in free play, outdoor exploring. They need to be with their friends, their peers. They need to have adults interacting with them outdoors. And that nature, it needs to be at the forefront of that because it engages all of your senses. And when the senses are fully engaged, the brain is fully engaged. And that's when growth really starts to happen. So that's really the premise behind our schools that we created. So the kids spend most, if not all, their days outside, learning, growing, exploring. And we decided that we built one at ODC right at the Outdoor Discovery Center, and it was wildly successful with 200 plus people on the waiting list for many years. So we just went into this expansion mode of saying, okay, if we really want to be successful with what we're doing, we need to land these facilities, these type of programs in numerous communities where people can have better access to it. Because not everybody has a car. Not everybody can drive across town. We had people driving from like Grand Haven to the south side of Holland to go to preschool when we first started. We had people from Muskegon. We had people from South Haven driving in to go to our schools. Yeah. And so we really wanted to create an opportunity to kind of throw that net out a little farther. And if we created a few more of these facilities and planted them, in strategic locations where we could serve kind of population centers, we would really be living into our mission that way. And so that's what we've focused on. And today we have 5 facilities that are up and running. We have one that's under construction, a couple more that are going to go under construction in the next year or so. And in total right now, we're serving about 450 kids in our nature-based early childhood programs. But by the end of 26, we'll be serving them 1,000 kids in our nature-based early childhood programs.
It's unbelievable. It's actually believable because you have an amazing team of people that do this.
We do, yeah.
And I think that's also what makes you very unique is the people that you have and the organization that you've developed. And it's pretty incredible, actually.
Yeah, none of this would be possible if it wasn't for the team. And I think I think it's really important to say that out loud, that there are 160 some people now that are working in our organization, and it is that group of people that are boots on the ground that are really making the difference and really doing the hard things that we do to change the community. And hopefully, it sounds a little maybe cliche, but to change the world, right? Like we want to start a new movement of how people view education and kids and raising their children. And what better place to do that than here in West Michigan?
Absolutely. I know you guys have the preschools do you offer other educational programs outside of the preschools themselves?
Yeah, we do. So we have a variety of programs we offer. So we have what we just call like our general nature programming, which are school field trips. So we see thousands of kids a year from all the area schools throughout West Michigan that come out for kind of the one-time field trips. Some may come a couple different times. So we do that. We do summer camps in the summer, nature-based kind of camps, kayaking, archery, all kinds of different nature programs. We do a lot of stuff for the community where we get asked. We have a birds of prey center, so we end up doing these live bird of prey shows. We do a lot of wildlife programming. That's kind of all of our general like nature programming. Then we also have a consulting group called the ODC Education Network that actually works with kind of the K-12 side of education, helping them get their schools and get their students out of the classroom. We want them to be outside, just like our preschools. It was really born out of the preschool effort where schools started calling us and saying, hey, we see what you're doing in your preschools. We have families that are leaving your preschool and coming to us and saying, why aren't we going outside and doing these things? And so that's led to now, I think we're up to about 32 contracts with area schools where we are helping them get their classes outside, doing their curriculum and the work they're supposed to do, but doing it out of the classroom. We like to say it's really, we're trying to revamp where learning happens in our community. So that's another big part of our education work. And then the last thing that we really do is we have this Explorer Network entity that we created that does ecotourism that's kind of geared more towards adults. So we're really trying to get adults to engage in the outdoors and getting them into the environment as well, just like kids, because they need it as bad as kids do.
We're going to talk about that in a minute. One question I have on the student side, do you know how many of those if you count all those schools that you take in for programs and stuff, do you know how many students in a year get to touch through your program?
So in 2023, so we count it on an annual basis, but in 2023, we were at just short of 140,000 kids that participated in our programs over the course of the year. So
140,000.
140,000.
That's amazing. That's awesome. I love that. I should also probably say too, I didn't say this earlier, but I serve on the board at Outdoor Discovery Center, and I have the privilege of being on the education committee. So I do get to know some of this stuff a little more than probably the average person does. But it's been fun for me to see the outdoor education piece, both with these schools that you're doing as well as your preschools that you have. Give us a little bit of an idea, maybe just dive deep for a few minutes on what does an average day look like or classroom setting look like where these kids are experiencing the outdoors.
Sure.
Because I think most of us think of you're in a classroom, but yours are not that way necessarily.
Right. So when we design our facilities, like there's licensing when you're doing early child education, so you're following state of Michigan license, and we're a licensed and highly rated, school program. But we design it in two parts. So there's an outdoor component and an indoor component, and we actually spend just as much money and resources on the outdoor part of it as we do the indoor part of it in an effort to try to create an environment where the kids can spend the entire day outside. They can have snack, they can eat lunch outside. We have kids hammocking in the woods, taking naps. We have all sorts of things that we have done with our programs to really connect and engage the children in the outdoors. And I think that's what makes us unique. So at a normal day, kids will show up, they immediately drop their stuff inside, but they go right outside, and they will spend, again, depending on weather and what's going on, we just kind of read the kids and how the day is going and what the weather's doing, but they sometimes are out the entire day. So they'll play for a while. Our program is very much focused on play-based. The education system that our kids all live in these days is way too focused on assessments, and trying to analyze our children's success levels. And we've skipped through some really important things like social emotional development, building friends, playing together, team building, all these different things that kids need to do, especially at the really young age.
Totally.
And that's when the brain's really absorbing that stuff. And that's where the foundation's being set. So that's where we're focusing, is on that kind of stuff. But they're playing outdoors. They do small group. They'll read books outside. They go for hikes. Every day they take a hike. They might walk a mile. We have 3 and 4-year-old kids that'll go for mile hikes every day. And so they'll pull wagons with all their stuff in it. They might visit other spots on our properties and hang out for a while before they come back. And so, every day is different, but it has a healthy dose of being outside. And even at our K-12 school programs, there are some pillars that line up in there. The kids need to be outside for a certain amount of time each day. They need to go off-site. They need to learn about their community. They need to engage in their community, because that ecosystem they live in and they function in, that's what makes them want to stay here and work and be part of our community long term.
Totally.
So
I believe you guys have like an indigenous program that you teach a lot of history, if you will,
Yep.
of the Native Americans that lived here, as well as you have a birds of prey, where I think you have. Tell a little bit about birds of prey.
Yeah, so we do have this indigenous, early living, a cultural history center that we've created. So it really connects the native early peoples that lived here, our indigenous folks, to the fur traders and folks, French fur traders, and the Europeans who came over and started settling the United States. And it's how they interacted and lived off the land and utilized the resources. So yeah, that program exists. And then our Birds of Prey Center is really one of our iconic things that we've developed over the last decade. So we have 26 live birds of prey that live at the ODC. They all have been injured in some way in the wild, determined by a veterinarian and rehabbers that they're not capable of living successfully in the wild anymore. So then they have the one option is really to find an educational environment that they can go into where they can become a wildlife ambassador. And so that's what they are for us. They're ambassadors. They're not pets. We use them to educate people about nature, about the outdoors, about wildlife. And so when you can hold an owl on your hand and talk about a predator and point out what makes it a predator, what makes it a bird, what allows it to hunt successfully, those are all great educational things that we can do. And it certainly is more engaging for kids and adults, and it sticks. Like when you do the outdoor thing and when you have the live animals things, it makes the learning sticky. And so the kids grasp it and they hang on to it. And that's why we do what we do.
I experienced firsthand on a field trip with one of our kids' schools, a student that had some learning disabilities and really attention. The attention was difficult for them. And they brought out a hawk, and that kid was glued to that hawk and was really paying attention and listening. And then the rest of the day, I think, just really helped them and their ability to learn. And so to your point, these animals can be really transformative in the classroom.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's the animals, it's the engagement in nature, and nature by itself is engaging, but behavior is driven a lot by that, right? You make kids sit in rows. We call it toes in rows, which they don't do all of that anymore, but that used to be the main way to do it. But kids sit inside way too much under fluorescent lights, and they're asked to kind of do the drill and kill kind of worksheets, whatever. That does not engage a young brain, right? And we know even a kid who doesn't have any kind of learning issues or physical or mental, impairments, that is something that everybody needs. We all need to be outside for that. And so it's been proven that behavior issues drop dramatically when kids are engaged outside, and it's because they're having fun and they want to be doing something and they will behave. And what we also see is that teacher engagement goes up because they're having fun and the behaviors are not happening, so they're not having to mitigate that. And then the kids go home and the parents are happier because the kid's tired out easier. They go to bed easier at night. Their kids are just generally happier. So the whole system gets better. Absolutely. When you have that kind of engagement.
Absolutely. Conservation efforts. Wanted to touch on that a little bit. I know you guys have a whole division for that.
Yep.
Give us a little bit of an idea of maybe a specific project you're working on now and just some plans on the conservation side.
Yeah, so on the conservation side, so ODC just strongly believes that you have to both have this outdoor education component to educate people about the outdoors, but we also need to have the green space and the nature to engage people in. So if we don't protect that and preserve it, we aren't going to have those places to do that outdoor education work we do. So those two things go hand in hand for us, and that's really critical to our mission. We have a conservation services group that does habitat restoration work all over our community, as well as on ODC's property. So we have several corporations like Hayworth, Tierra Yacht, Tennant Corporation, Hoekstra Electric, and on the whole Holland Board of Public Works. We do a lot of habitat restoration for them. Basically, they're trying to take lawn mowing out of production and putting native prairie grasses, shortgrass prairies, and wildflower meadows back in, which is what used to live in a lot of these landscapes, in an effort to reduce lawn mowing. It helps water quality, it creates habitat, especially for pollinators, and it's just a great environmental message. So we have a group that does that work. We actually have a group that does, we call Project Clarity, which is working on restoring the waters of the Macatawa watershed and Lake Macatawa here, right in the heart of downtown Holland. And that is one of our signature projects that we started about 11 years ago now, and it's really been focused on reducing the phosphorus and sediment that's flowing off of both our urban and agricultural areas from flowing into Lake Macatawa, which makes it a hyper-eutrophic lake, meaning it's got too much nutrients in it. And our community rallied around us and made some pretty significant private investments, as well as our local units of government have stepped in, and now some of state funding and even federal funding to continue to work on cleaning up our watershed. And we've had a 62% reduction in the nutrient loading, nutrient levels in the lake over the last 10 years. And one exciting thing that we're about to launch is what we're calling phase 3 of Project Clarity, which is going to start to look at an engineered solution being implemented, meaning doing some engineering work to help get the last bit of the cleanup that we want to do in the lake. And that is we're going to be one of the first entities in the country, or in the state. Sorry, it's been done in other places in the country, but we'll be the first entity in the state to make that happen if we can get all the permitting and things in place to do it. So we're really excited about what we've done with Lake Macatawa and our watershed in general. We've got an awesome group of people at ODC Network that are working on this, and this has been a big lift in the community, but we're getting there. So
people always ask me as a real estate agent about the water quality of Lake Macatawa, and I'm so proud to at least know a little bit about Project Clarity. And I think people too need to understand it's not pollution necessarily, but it's a bunch of different things in the water.
Yeah. So our watershed, just to be clear, we actually are blessed to not have a bunch of heavy metal pollutants in our water, which some places have. There's places. The Kalamazoo River watershed has been, polluted with from the paper mill industry. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of PCBs and other things that are found in that watershed. Some watersheds get a lot of heavy metals. We hear about things like PFAS. Lake Macatawa, generally speaking, its main issue is just that there's a heavy agricultural community, and it used to be a lot of wetlands. And so when the early settlers in the 1800s came in, they filled in a lot of the wetlands, created farmland. And so a lot of that farmland has erosional problems that run directly into our watershed. And for years, that was just the okay thing to do. And that's what caused our watershed to become, it's basically we have too much dirt and nutrients in the lake. But like I said, we reduced that nutrient loading by 62%. We had a goal of doing it by 70%. We're actually increasing that goal to try to go a little farther now. But the community can rest assured we are not seeing E. coli levels and beach closure alerts on Lake Macatawa, and there have no something called microcystins, which form in blue-green algae. So we hear about algal blooms like in Lake Erie and other places closing it down, making the drinking water unsafe. We don't have that in Lake Macatawa even. So we're happy that the lake is where it's at. We can do more. We can do better. And that's what we believe in, and we're going to keep leaning in to make that happen.
I love it. Yeah, it's super cool work that you guys are doing with that. Kind of wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on in the future. I know you've got some corporate projects you're working on.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can speak on that.
Yeah, I can. So big one that's been launched now and is up and under construction is we partnered with Gentex Corporation in Zealand. And so we're building out an early childhood center with Gentex. It'll be Gentex Discovery Preschool. They own it, but they are going to work with us to operate it for them. And the goal was to have it serve their employees' kids. So it's really being designed to serve. They're a big company. They have thousands of employees here in this community. And so childcare is a big deal.
Totally.
And it's hard to find good childcare. And the ones that do exist are full. There's waiting lists.
Yeah.
And it's a challenging thing. And so it ends up impacting the ability for employees to take jobs, because a lot of parents have to stay home with their kids because they can't find childcare, and that affects the workforce. Lost days to childcare centers closing down is a problem. And so there's just a lot of issues. It was labeled as one of the top 2 issues in our community. Housing was one, which I know you work in this area, which is like finding housing for people just because they're a great place and everybody wants to live here. We got to have more houses, and we need more childcare. And so we're leaning in with Gentex, and we have some other corporate partners that we're actually working with now as well, kind of leaning into this idea that we can help build these childcare centers, and they're going to operate in our model. So they're going to be nature-based. They're going to be serving kids birth to 5, and they're going to be engaged with those kids being outdoors, doing all the things that we believe is what's best for brain development, and all the results and all the great metrics that we've received and seen through our programming that we do in our existing preschools are going to happen in these facilities. Only we have the blessing of being able to partner with some amazing corporations to really help make it happen, bring it to scale, eliminate some of the barriers that we run into sometimes when we're trying to build out these facilities. So Gentex is going to be amazing.
Talk about a smart idea for a corporation to have, like you said, not only take care of their current employees, but also draw in new employees as well too, that, hey, they need childcare. not only are they going to get childcare, but they're going to get some of the best childcare around.
Exactly.
And good education.
And it should help them not only retain employees, but attract talent, right?
Exactly.
And it's going to attract talent at all levels because, in my opinion, people are going to want to work there, even if they don't have kids, because it's the type of culture and the type of environment that they just want to be in. In companies like Gentex, they're innovators. They're doing the kind of the big scale entrepreneurial work in our community to kind of make it better. They're hiring lots of people and they're constantly growing. And I think being engaged with groups like that is really going to help set the tone for what this community really wants to be like the next 10 or 20 years.
Right. So, by the way, if you're a corporation watching this and you want to have your own Discovery Preschool, you can talk.
Yeah, sure.
There's abilities to do more. And I think it's really neat that there's companies in our area that want to do that want to support not only their employees, but just the whole community as well.
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit about the Explorer Network. I think that's something that's I get interested in. I think it's important to you as well, too.
Yeah. So we started this around 2000, I think it was 5 or 6. We started our first eco tour. That was the first time we took one. And we really saw the impact it had on the people that went on the trip, where a lot of people aren't comfortable taking, it's not a risky trip, but just going somewhere that they've never been before and understanding how to get the most out of that experience. Just feeling like all those little details maybe are covered for them. So we started to say, hey, we could offer these eco tours to places like Africa and Ecuador. In Ecuador, you go to the Galapagos Islands. Africa, we go to Tanzania. We see the Great Migration. We've gone to Alaska many times. We go up into the northern Manitoba to look at polar bears. And we've just done so many unique things with folks. And we put these trips together, and we remove all the work for people. They basically just have to sign up with ODC. They pay us. We put it all together, and we have one of our staff go with them on the excursion. Sometimes multiple staff if it's a big enough group. And we try to make sure they have just a very unique experience that they probably wouldn't do on their own.
Oftentimes you're on these trips.
I do go on a lot of the trips. It's a benefit, I guess I would say. It's a lot of work. I always tell people going on these trips is a lot of work because you're dealing with a lot of details to try to really make this experience happen for folks. But it is amazing. It's an amazing opportunity that I'm blessed to do. And I love photography, so I do a lot of photography, and I'm able to give everybody all the pictures that I take, and I think that's just a unique part of it as well, that we're able to offer some unique pieces. We have naturalists that go, people who are kind of have strong knowledge of the areas that we're visiting and can help explain things, but as well as we're handling gratuities and all the other little details all the way through it too, so people don't have to worry about that. So we're doing these trips. We go all over the world. We're constantly adding new ones into the mix. We have a Women to Nature program, so a couple of the ladies that work in our organization put together these trips that are just for women, and that has a high uptake with it, doing a lot of our national parks and different excursions around mostly the United States, but they're looking at going to the Galapagos Islands, I think, next year with a group. So that's just been a big way to engage with a more adult population.
When he says he likes photography, by the way, he's like a professional photographer. And if you go to their offices, you can see all these amazing pictures that looks like there's a polar bear that he was 5 feet away from they took a picture of, but it's just incredible.
Yeah.
So I
thank you for saying that.
How can people get involved with ODC?
Yeah. So there's a lot of ways that you can get involved. I mean, we have volunteers that work for us. We have people that work at our visitor center desk. We have volunteers that help do projects. We have volunteers that help work with our wildlife. So there's lots of ways you can volunteer. We have a lot of events and activities that we do all over the community throughout the year. There's chances to volunteer and engage with that. We obviously have a board of directors that you're part of. So those are things we're always, looking for new people that would want to be a part of our board and part of our organization in that way. A lot of committees and different groups that are associated with the different things that we do in the ODC. Like you said, you're a part of our education committee, but we have different groups that help guide all the different business lines that we have. And then I think, it's always having people just, if they have resources and want to engage and support our work, as a nonprofit, we always need people to support what we do, because that's how we continue to grow and advance our impact in the community.
Yeah, you guys are doing so many amazing things. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of need for people to get involved too, which is great. So anything you want to leave us with? Any other points that you want to tell our listeners?
No, I just appreciate you allowing me to come in and talk about this with you. And I think, if you're thinking about moving to this community, Kyle's a great realtor. I'll give him a shameless plug here, but he's the best, and I would lean in with him on that all day long. But this community is amazing. It provides us with so many great blessings in so many different ways. And the job I have and the place I work at and all the people I get to work with are just an example of the greatness this community has to offer. So, I just appreciate getting to share a little bit about it. And I hope people that are listening maybe find ways to engage in what we're doing.
Yeah. We'll link below all of the information on the ODC Network. You can see they have a really good website that shows you all the different stuff they have going on. And if you want to get more involved, feel free to reach out to their team. We'll get their contact info below. Travis, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And that's the West Michigan Minute.